So we have a really good clip here from my boy, y'all. This is my boy. So this guy's name is Leland Vittert. He's on, I believe he's on News Nation, the news network News Nation. And this is a guy who lost his job at Fox News because he told the truth about the election, saying it's not stolen, it's not rigged, and Biden actually won it. And the executives at Fox didn't like the fact that he criticized Trump on air, and so they axed his ass. He would have had a bright future if he just played the game. He didn't play the game. He stuck to his conscience, and now he's on News Nation. So anyway, I tell you all that to tell you this. He's my boy because he actually had me on Fox News. I believe it was 2 times, maybe 3, that I was on Fox News. And he had a good show. He actually asked some good questions. He certainly leans right, but he's not, a hardcore Trump guy or anything like that. But now he's even leaning into shots at Ron DeSantis. In fact, he calls a DeSantis move here, quote, profoundly stupid.
Play stupid games and you win stupid prizes. That is a political lesson, however, lost on Republican presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis. His campaign right now is on life support. So he went on Fox News to reset things with some big ideas, starting with, wait for it, suing InBev. That's the parent company of Bud Light. Governor DeSantis will take them to court over hiring a transgender influencer.
When you take your eye off the ball like that, you're not following your fiduciary duty to do the best you can for your shareholders. So we're going to be launching an inquiry about Bud Light and InBev, and it could be something that leads to a derivative lawsuit filed on behalf of the shareholders of the Florida pension fund, because at the end of the day, there's got to be penalties for when you put business aside to focus on your social agenda at the expense of hardworking people.
So before he responds, let me respond to that. You're assuming that they put business aside when they did the Dylan Mulvaney ad. It's actually quite the opposite. The only reason they did it, the only reason they virtue signal, is business. They want to signal, hey, we're in favor of white conservative people buying our beer. We're in favor of black conservative people, black liberal people, white liberal people, Muslims, immigrants, various, minorities, and trans people and gay people. Hey, everybody, you should love Bud Light. Here's an ad with a trans person. That's why they did it. They did it for business reasons. That's why every corporation does what they do. The only thing they care about is the bottom line. It's not like they care about that first and foremost. It is the only thing they care about. So his assumption that they don't care about that is just, you can't prove that because you're wrong, Ron DeSantis. Anyway, let's go back to Leland.
Clearly, neither Jesse Waters there nor Ron DeSantis understands derivative lawsuits. Derivative lawsuits almost always hurt the shareholders. Those are the very people that DeSantis claims he is protecting. Any settlement money comes from the company or its insurance policy. Despite what DeSantis seems to think, the derivative lawsuit doesn't claw back money from directors or officers. Moreover, derivative lawsuits are incredibly hard to win. First-year law student could tell you woke marketing decisions don't breach fiduciary responsibility. A second-year law student would find this clip of DeSantis pushing the Bud Light boycott to begin with.
Why would you want to drink Bud Light? I mean, like, honestly, that's like them rubbing our faces in it. And it's like these companies that do this, if they never have any response, they're just going to keep doing it.
All right, so in other words, DeSantis wants to sue over damages for a boycott that he personally called for. DeSantis's concept is profoundly stupid. More importantly, the idea exposes DeSantis's fatal flaw. He doesn't know who he is.
Oh.
Is Ron DeSantis an anti-woke crusader? Or is Ron DeSantis a conservative warrior? It appears he wants to be both at the same time. That doesn't work. Ron DeSantis suing Bud Light over hiring a transgender influencer is exactly the same as the Biden administration making companies hire chief diversity officers and demanding diversity, equity, and inclusion reports, or issuing government contracts based on equity scores. That's wrong. But any fair assessment shows DeSantis is demanding the same type of political orthodoxy and government intervention that he claims to hate. The conservative values DeSantis purports to follow says you keep government out of people's lives and businesses' lives. Ronald Reagan, in fact, explained that perfectly well.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
During the Reagan presidency, Bud Light became one of the first major brands to sponsor gay pride marches. Can you possibly imagine Reagan suing Bud Light when they supported gay pride parades? Of course not. The concept is laughable. Being president is more than broing out with a cable news host.
Oh.
These comments aren't partisan. Like them or not, agree with them or not, Reagan stood for something. Obama stood for something. It is still unclear what Ron DeSantis stands for other than himself.
So look, the argument he's making, it's a fair argument. It is an argument from a conservative perspective, because Leland himself, I think, leans right. He's saying, look, if you actually believe in conservatism, you should believe in limited government, small government, government that stays out of many issues or most issues. And so in this particular realm, you could have whatever anti-woke opinions you want, but as soon as you use the force of government to try to mandate people act in accordance with your anti-woke beliefs, you're not abiding by the principle of small government anymore. You could say, hey, Bud Light, I hope you don't do woke marketing anymore, and okay, fine. But you can't say we're going to do a lawsuit or we're going to try to regulate businesses to, envision an anti-woke ideology or an anti-woke marketing strategy or whatever. It basically, bottom line is, it is government overreach. And Leland appears to be more of a traditional conservative, where he thinks whatever your feelings are in the culture war, the government has no business intervening in the culture war. It almost reminds me of what happened with Asa Hutchinson in Arkansas, where he overrode the Republican legislature when they tried to ban gender-affirming care for minors. And Asa's reaction was, look, we already have a process. You have parents and you have children. And if you get together with the medical expert and you're the parent and, you have a kid with severe gender dysphoria and you guys decide after evaluating, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, I, as a representative of the state government, I'm not going to step in and tell you can't do that because I believe some sort of way about what you're doing here. That is government overreach. So there was a principled conservative argument to get the government out of decisions like treatment for gender dysphoria. And of course, he got backlash for that because the anti-woke crusade sort of overrode the traditional conservative principle of limited government. And by the way, they've never really stuck by that principle. That's the thing. They've never really stuck by that principle. These guys are totally fine with government getting involved if the government is getting involved, for example, to beef up the military-industrial complex and, pay off the war profiteers. Getting involved to bail out Wall Street. Maybe there's some principled conservatives who say I'm against that, but the overwhelming majority of elected Republicans, every time it comes to one of these economic issues, they're like, yeah, subsidize all the corporations, give tax cuts to the wealthy, big government all day long, baby, big government for war all day long. The only time they want smaller government is when it comes to social safety net programs. So Ron DeSantis doesn't see the distinction he's making. Ron DeSantis, in his mind, part of being conservative is just traditionalism. And the traditionalism principle overrides the small government principle. So for him, it's it is not traditional. It is degeneracy to have trans stuff. And so we're going to enforce the tradition stuff. That's his view of conservatism, and he's enforcing it. But look, to Leland's point, the shit just doesn't work. It just didn't work. You're tanking in the polls. You're not, appealing to normies. Leland is accurately pointing that out. You had the hyper online ad where you were bragging about being anti-gay and bragging about being an American psycho, Patrick Bateman, who murdered homeless people, and you defended that ad. It's you've lost your normie touch. And so now, effectively, what you're doing right-wing virtue signaling. As ironically, your biggest issue is too many left-wing virtue signalers. Okay, but you don't have to be the mirror image of that, right? You don't have to be a right-wing virtue signaler. But he is that. So Leland absolutely torched him, man. And it goes on here. He continues to go in. But anyway, go check out the whole clip on Mediaite if you want to see it. But, wow. So not only have the donors now begun to turn on DeSantis and the voters are turning on DeSantis, but even the, conservative media commentariat now is you're kind of goofy. He did, I'm going to reboot my campaign. We need a fresh start. And what does he do? the very first thing he does is, we're going to sue Bud Light over a trans ad. How is this a reboot? This is just like all the other garbage you were doing before to stop woke act or whatever, all these social issues that you lean into. It's the same thing. There's no reboot here. And by the way, he's going to continue to collapse in the polls. Enjoy that. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.